You wouldn't happen to be excited for the Joker Part 2, would you? Surely you know better than that by now, right? And if you don't, well, I am here today to try and beat that optimism out of you. For your own good, of course. This is an action of love rather than simple sadism. Probably. By showing you an interview from its director, Todd Phillips. Now, this is a bit of an interesting one, due to several things, which, on the one hand, could actually be good, and on the other could be really, really terrible, as, well, the people making this movie, and even Joaquin Phoenix himself, has no goddamn clue whatsoever what this is based on, in the slightest. Which, again, might actually be a good thing, as sure as hell the people who claim to be fans of the things, like Batman Caped Crusader, for example, they are certainly not able to make anything worthwhile, so hey, maybe not having the faintest bit of a clue about the comic book stuff you're adapting is actually a strength, but anywho. So it begins with, and this is a very long article, so I've snipped out the interesting parts. Why do something if it doesn't scare the shit out of you? Phillips asks. That's the director. I am addicted to risk. I mean, it keeps you up at night, it makes your hair fall out, but it's the sweat that keeps you going. Joker was a dicey proposition that paid off, becoming a blockbuster hit and winning Phoenix an Oscar. The gritty, pitch-black look at a mentally ill loner proved that audiences would flock to do something dark and challenging, provided it came in a comic book packaging or coating. See, this is the interesting thing, because it tells me that they don't actually know why the Joker was good. People didn't watch it because it was gritty, pitch black, and about mental illness. They watched it because, one, it's the Joker, which, implies the rest, and two, politically speaking, it was a surprisingly, well-timed piece with surprisingly rare social commentary. The whole bit, for example, like, you think that's funny, says the TV host, and the Joker goes, yes, I think that's funny, and I'm tired of pretending it isn't. Oh boy, that hits so many people just right in the heart right there, because there are a lot of people right now who feel as if their very sense of humor has become de facto illegal because, well, it probably has. If you're like me, for example, growing up in, the early 2090s, etc., with comedians like Eddie Murphy, well, let's just say that your sense of stand-up comedy is no longer socially acceptable by any stretch of the imagination. And so again, that entire thing, I'm sick of pretending that it's not funny. Oh boy, that was a fantastic pitch, a piece of cultural commentary, which apparently might have happened entirely by accident, which should worry you a lot about the second movie. The question became, how can we top ourselves, Philip says, and you can only do that if you do something dangerous. But there were days on sets where you'd look around and think, holy fucking shit, what did we do? The answer is a full-on musical. Now, I actually quite like musicals. I've been told it apparently fits in quite well with my more refined image, but a musical as the Joker. Okay, it could work. Surprise, here's the thing. Musicals done well actually add a tremendous amount to a story, because you not only then have the story, the acting, you also have the music and the singing, which when done well can actually complement one another exemplarily. So this isn't necessarily a terrible idea or anything. It's just, well, after watching Napoleon, I am no longer quite as assured by Joaquin Phoenix acting chops as I once was, and this seems like a rather radical departure, which uses a genre associated with Judy Garland and Fred Astaire to examine a frayed mind growing even more dangerously untethered as the Joker stands trial for 5 murders. Again, I'm not in opposition to this, I'm just thinking that this isn't actually the main draw you think it is. Todd took a very big swing with this whole concept, and with the script giving the sequel to Joker this audacity and complexity, says Gaga. There's music, there's dance, it's drama, it's also a courtroom drama, it's a comedy. It's happy, it's sad, it's a testament to Todd as a director that he would rather be creative than just tell a traditional story of love. That does sound like somewhat roundabout praise, doesn't it? But will moviegoers, particularly the younger men who form the bulk of the audience for comic book flicks, really show up for that? Phillips is banking on their appetite for something new and different at a time when the movie business is primarily interested in retreads and reboots. Now, he is of course correct here, but again, what really struck the movie-going audience was the commentary, the political part of the Joker. Because here's the thing. The Joker was not merely just a mentally ill person in the Joker. He was a disenfranchised man. Something a lot of men today can recognize themselves in. And once more, they don't quite seem to recognize this. And he has used the capital he accrued from Joker to convince Warner Brothers to back the much pricier sequel. The first film cost $60 million, and though Phillips admits a Folie or Deux worth too much more expensive, he says reports of it before budget hitting $200 million are absurd. Well, that is pretty much the regular at this point, but 120 perhaps. Plus, he doesn't understand why people care about what's being spent. I read the stories and it seems like they're on the side of the multinational corporation, Phillips says. They're like, why does it cost so much? They sound like a studio executives. Shouldn't people be happy that we got this money out of them and we use it to hire a bunch of crew people who can then feed their families? Says the man who is then having breakfast at Chateau Marmont, which is exactly as expensive a restaurant as you think it is. Like, I'm a man of the people now. Waiter, more caviar and champagne, please. And hey, I am hardly the first person to step in and defend the multinational corporation, although I have been doing it a lot more recently. But okay, so as the business owner in me as well, I do hate this idea. So, well, I just took money from the company and gave it to people. Shouldn't you be lauding me? Yeah, theoretically, if you can actually earn that money back, then fantastic. But if you simply just waste the money, then, well, those people you have employed... You ever heard the old adage, teach a man to fish, don't give him a fish? Well, you're currently giving them fish, and it's gonna run out eventually. Though if Warner Brother takes a massive loss on a movie, you know what, they still have lessons to learn, so I can happily acknowledge that and accept it. Joker 2 may be his most go-for-broke gamble yet. It's a movie that kicks off with a Looney Tunes-inspired cartoon starring the Joker, coach of the Triplets of Belleville, animator Sylvian Comet before hurtling through prison riots, courtroom face-offs, and a variety show sequence that finds Phoenix and Gaga portraying a homicidal Sonny and Cher. Again, this does sound weird, but not necessarily negative. The part 2 is set 2 years after the first film, which ended with Arthur shooting a Carson-like talk show host, Robert De Niro, dead on live television while outfitted as the Joker, and inciting a citywide riot in the process. Now, Arthur is locked up in a psych ward and facing the death penalty, but after meeting a fellow patient, Harleen Lee Quinzel, patient there, Gaga, who is obsessed with him, or rather his alter ego, Arthur ditches his medication and prances into a fancy world that often plays like the MGM musicals of yesteryears on acid. Again, I don't like the focus on medication. Obviously, he is going to be put in the psych ward because they think he's in mad, but the focus on the psychiatric illness of the Joker is kind of the wrong direction here again, as I've already said. But it gets worse. As their bond intensifies, Arthur and Lee break into songs like Get Happy, For Once in My Life, and That's Life that convey their shifting emotions. He's drawn to romantic ballads. She prefers music about power. Clearly, they want different things out of a relationship. Now that is a very important part, because I have already predicted on multiple occasions now, and Arch will be proven correct on this, doubt him not, this is not going to be a movie about the Joker. This is going to be a movie about Lady Gaga, and we'll get to that more later as well, as Gaga will be the one acting upon the Joker. As first and foremost, she is not a psychiatrist here, which means that the Joker is not acting upon her. That is the classic story in, well, Batman, etc. In the Joker story, is that Dr. Harley Quinn was the psychiatrist that was seduced by the Joker, partially via power, but more so via his maddened charisma, and the fact that he managed to tickle her nutso-pickle as well, as Harley is hardly an entirely well-balanced individual, but Harley is his sidekick. Here, however, by making Harley another patient, Joker is not acting upon her, she is acting upon him. She is the force that makes him stop taking his medication. She is the one that goes, no, you are not Arthur, you are the Joker. And it's even, the Joker is drawn towards romantic ballads. We have completely flipped the script here. The Joker is now the one who is in love with Harley, whereas Harley is only in love with the Joker due to his power, due to his social power, his ability to start riots, his influence upon the world, and the effect he can have upon Gotham. She does not love Arthur or the Joker, really. She loves the idea and the alter ego. And do I hear a word here that is exactly the way that it's supposed to be, but the other way around? That the Joker is the one who affects Harley in that way. Exactly. They have flipped the script. Harley is now the main character. The Joker is the sidekick. The one who is influenced by the position, well, not by the position, but by simple love, by a more simplistic emotion that abandons his own agency. You know, you do anything for love, etc. That was Harleen's position. And that was also what allowed her a window to redemption, because she wasn't doing this because of what I would consider a, how do I put it, a well-considered, thought-out, reasoned approach to the Joker. It was passion rather than intelligence. Not quite the way I'd like to put it, but you get what I'm saying here. Beyond the whole notion of reimagining Joker as a singing and hoofing anti-hero, there was another Phoenix-led inspiration that helped shape Joker Part 2. In the early talk, the actor had also raised the prospect of pairing Arthur with a female Joker. Again, not a sidekick, not a backup singer, a female Joker. Now, amusingly enough, they go on, who could serve as a dance partner in kind of a psychotic tango. That led Phillips and Silver to Harley Quinn, a supervillain first introduced in the 1990s animated Batman series and later brought to life by Margot Robbie. I hate her version of Harleen, by the way. And Birds of Prey, but also played by Gaga. This Harley may be manipulative and immoral, but she's also more grounded. The high voice, the accent, the gum chewing, and all sorts of sassy stuff that's in the comics, we stripped that away, Phillips says. We wanted her to fit into this world of Gotham that we created from the first movie. So these people had no idea who Harley Quinn were. None. It was just female Joker to them. And then they went on the internet and went, female Joker. And it's like, oh, Harley Quinn. Oh, I see. What a fascinating, silly little comic book character you have here. I'm just going to take that, the name specifically, and I'm going to change her entirely. All of the things that define Harley, out the window, and now she's another main character, probably the main character. Again, the way they refer to her as a female Joker is very, very telling, in my opinion. Now again, it might actually be better for people who have no real connection to the character's lore to create these characters, as they might be able to provide a fresher, more interesting take on them. We saw that in Joker Part 1. If this is any indication, he had diddly dick idea who the Joker was either, and yet then managed to deliver a very fine story. So, I'm not going to say it's impossible, I'm just saying the odds are very much so against it. Also, he was not, he maintains, trying to romanticize incels. Here we go. The sexually frustrated, terminally online subset of men with hostile tendencies. You mean the victims of your regime, madam? In complete honesty, I never even heard that word before, Philip says, and my movie was certainly not a love letter to that type of person. And then Phillips wasn't interested in doing something as conventional as depicting Arthur's metamorphosis into Batman's nemesis, so in the first movie seemed to be setting up by the ending with the murder of Bruce Wayne's parents. We didn't want to have him as the clown prince of crime or running a syndicate of criminals. Yet again, we are moving further away from the Joker being the Joker and instead simply being something for Harley to act upon. As for the insult part, well, again, I really don't think they understood why the first movie was popular. I don't think they got it. I mean, if this guy is still like, what's an incel? What's that term? And the interviewer's like, oh, evil male terrorists, and he just nods his head like, oh, disgusting. Yeah, I don't think he understands what he made. And then, of course, we've got Trump. Instead, here's one incident showing the way that Arthur's breakdown captivates Gotham. He wanted to examine how the very idea of entertainment has changed as movies and TV have come to share a stage with whatever scandal is currently being featured on TMZ or cable news. In the latest Joker, Arthur's courtroom antics are just a tabloid fodder. They're the biggest thing on the airwaves, attracting throngs of mad-as-hell fans. It's all been corrupted, Philip says. Look at the recent presidential debate. There's a countdown clock and these gladiatorial graphics. Or take the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial. Everything is just treated as entertainment now, and there is something sad and troubling about that. Well, I sort of kind of disagree, because the point here is, of course, that there are the mad-as-hell fans. Whereas, whenever I've seen courtroom stuff covered, I have always seen overwhelmingly public support go against the person in the wrong. Amber Heard, for example, you could not invent a reality in which she looks sympathetic in the slightest. And so people sided with Johnny Depp. Not because they wanted entertainment out of it, but because they saw a person being quite apparently genuinely victimized. And then we get to the Donald. It's hard to watch this movie without thinking of Donald Trump's recent carnival-like courthouse appearance. I imagine it is difficult to imagine anything without thinking of the Trumpolophagus, as I am beginning to get a general idea of your political bearings. And Phillips, for his part, sees similarities between Joker's hold on his disaffected followers and the former president's popular appeal. Think what you want about Trump, but for the certain segment of society that's in love with him, he's a guy who's just saying what he wants to say and doing what he wants to do. He is who he is, and people respond to that. Again, it is interesting how Phillips here is very close to understanding what he captured with the first movie. What he managed to create was a character who spoke to the disaffected members of the audience, of which there were a lot. As The Acolyte has recently demonstrated, the majority of us is the toxic fandom. We are the majority. We are the ones who determine whether or not your project succeeds. That is why the Joker earned $1 billion, because you spoke to something that we could recognize. A disaffected, straight white male. Something you don't see a whole lot of these days. Struggling with the world and the weights it placed upon him, and the fact that he was no longer able to rationalize it in his own mind. The oppression he felt resonated, and that is exactly why Trump is so incredibly popular. He speaks to an enormous mass of disenfranchised, disaffected people who are looking at him and going, holy shit, somebody who's willing to say it, and who has, apparently, at the moment at least, enough sway and gravitas to not get locked up for it. Whereas, again, if I were to quote some of the Eddie Murphy jokes I saw as a youth, my channel would actually be taken down. In fact, I've had cancellation attempts launched against me, literally, for quoting comedians that I've grew up with, like Chris Rock, for example. That is the world in which we live. And so when we see the Joker going, yes, I think it's funny, and I'm sick of pretending it isn't, that's me. that is what we saw. And perhaps Phillips is merely playing to his rather progressive interviewer here, trying to make sure that he gets his good side, so to say. Entirely possible, as I wave away the bug that is attempting to interrupt me. But I am also now wondering, having seen the rest of this article, I genuinely don't think he understands what made the Joker good. And if he doesn't understand that, well, not only will the Joker 2 not be a Joker movie, as it will be focused on Harley, that already is guaranteed, but he will also not be able to speak to the audience that will go watch it, both because, well, the main character is no longer a disenfranchised straight male. It's now a woman. Not only that, Lady Gaga, of all people, a woman with enough privilege to simply wander into this movie and seize its role, not even as an actress. Yeah, I don't know how to break this to you, but odds are pretty good that this is going to be awful, terrible, and one of the larger disappointments in the last 10 years. So all I'm saying is, have happy thoughts, hope if you wish, but hope, as they say, is the first step on the road to damnation. Until next time, I've been Arch. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you all again soon. Have a good day.